our dear viewers, and welcome to a new edition of our program Africa Today. In today's edition, we are going to talk about the preparations between Cairo and Moscow to discuss the coming meeting for Africa-Russia conference, which will take place in Sochi. And we'll start with this report. Cairo and Moscow discussed preparations for the first ever Russia-Africa conference. The conference is to be held next month in Sochi, Russia. More details with Samah Sharif.
Egyptian and Russian officials on Thursday went over the preparations for the coming Russia-Africa conference set to be held in Sochi in October. According to a statement by the Egyptian Foreign Ministry, Egypt's ambassador to Russia, Ihab Nasr, and Russia's deputy foreign minister, Mikhail Bogdanov, presented the latest preparations on the gathering to African ambassadors during a Thursday meeting held at the Russian Foreign Ministry. The event, the first of its kind, will be held on the 23rd to the 24th of October and will include major Russian and African companies and businessmen. Nasr cited the noticeable leap forward witnessed by Russian-African relations in the past years, highlighting the hopes of African countries for concrete outcomes from the conference. Arrangements related to an economic forum set to be held on the sidelines of the conference were also discussed. Participation in the event is a vital chance to boost cooperation in trade and investment between the two sides.
And to shed more light on that, we are very much delighted to have with us over the phone Dr. Salah Abdallah, our political analyst. Good day to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Dr. Abdallah. Dr. Abdallah, how would you describe the level of the African-Russian ties?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How would you describe the level of cooperation between Africa and Russia ahead of the expected meeting that will take place in Sochi?
Of course, Russia now wants to return to Africa through Egypt. You know, Russia before, during the days of the Soviet Union, was in every part in Africa, to the extent that many regimes in Africa was following to the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
After the demolition or the analysis or the polling of the Soviet Union, Russia became away completely of Africa. That's why nowadays Russia wants to attract the African countries through economic cooperation to return back to the economic and the political role in Africa. You know, Africa is very important to the great powers in the world. It's still the fertile land, it's still the continent, is a great market. There is many raw materials. So that's why United States, France, Britain, China, and Russia is giving very importance to Africa. Of course, Egypt and Russia nowadays, they are in very strong relation, either from the economic point of view or the political point of view. Egypt now is the leader of the African Union. That's why through the relation between Russia and Egypt, cooperation can happen between Russia and Africa. That's why there is the summit which will happen in Russia, yes. Which is the Russian-African cooperation. Of course, will put the principle of cooperation between Russia and the African countries.
Yes.
And of course, the files here will depend upon the economic file, which is number one, which is very important to Russia and to the African countries. Russia have the technology and they have a good budget. Africa have the raw materials and the market. And that's why cooperation between the two will be effective for both Russia and for the African countries. I think there will be many joint projects between Russia and African countries, by the same way which is Russia doing now with Egypt. Yeah, there is a many joint projects in Egypt here with Russia. I think they will have to practice the same model in the African countries.
Yes.
That's why Egypt is very important and key point in the cooperation between Russia and the African countries.
Yes.
Of course, the investment, the Russian investment in the African countries will help in find the chances of jobs for the new generation in Africa, will increase productivity in the African countries, and through the economic relations, through the strong economic relations, the Russian political power will be returned again in the African continent like before when the Soviet Union was alive.
Yes. Dr. Abdullah, how do you see also the timing of the conference which will take place next month?
The timing is very good because, you know, there was a great preparation for this summit since long time. So, and I think there is many visits to the Russian capital for officials from the African Union and from Egypt to prepare for this meeting. So I think the meeting will be prepared very well, and the time is very good. You know, there is competition now between the West and China and Russia on Africa. That's why every country of them is in a hurry to find the chances and to put the projects which can be done in Africa. And this is, of course, for the sake and for the help of the African countries, which is suffering a lot from, you know, lack of productivity, and the economy is falling, and there is increased unemployment. So these meetings will be very important to help and find projects from Russia to African countries.
Yes. Dr. Abdullah, the conference will include major Russian and African companies, businessmen. How do you see the significance of the economic ties between Russia and Africa, and do you expect more fields of cooperation on the economic level to take place?
Nowadays, the economic ties between Russia and the African countries, except Egypt, the ties with the African countries is in a very low standard. But, of course, through this summit, it will be prepared well, and I think it is prepared well. And by putting a real plan for investment in the African countries, this will increase the ties between Russia and the African countries.
Yes.
Because, you know, through the economic project and through giving a chance of working for the new generation and through increasing productivity, the Russian influence will be increased in the African country and African countries, and this is what the Russian really need. So the ties will be increased in the future. But nowadays, Egypt is the only African country which have strong ties with Russia. Algeria can be number 2, but the other African countries in the middle and west and south, the relations or the ties is very low standard. But the possibility of increasing ties will come after that conference or after that meeting in Russia, and the starting of a real project in the African countries. And of course, the African countries who have more stability will gain more from the cooperation with Russia than the African country who has no stability or has internal problems. So even here there will be difference between the African countries to gain from this new relation and to gain from increasing the ties with Russia.
Yes. So, Dr. Abdullah, we have to say that Africa's ties with the U.S., with Europe, with China are well established. Why the ties with Russia are not the same till this moment? And are we expecting to witness new era of cooperation between Africa and Russia?
Russia was part of the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union was the second power in the world.
Yes.
And of course, during the days of the Soviet Union, the Russian was in every part in Africa. Even there is many countries was following the Soviet Union and against America and the West. And many projects in African countries have a Russian name, like Lenin Hospital and like Stadium and so on and so on. But when the Soviet Union falls, of course, everything had been disturbed, and the Russian had been withdrawn completely from Africa.
Yes.
So China by that time wasn't very strong in Africa, but China found it its chance to fill the space which happened as a result of the withdrawal of the Soviet Union. That's why China became now very strong in Africa, and they have a very strong relation, and they have many projects in all African countries. So the African continent now is number one, America, number two, Britain and France, number three is China.
Yes.
After that come some other countries like Egypt, let us say, and so on.
Yes. Dr. Abdullah.
Nowadays, Russia wants to return back that strong ties with the African countries. They want to return to Africa. That's why they are starting by having this summit in Moscow, which will happen next month, and by plans for projects to return back what was to them before. They want to return back and to have strong ties again and have influence in the continent again. And of course, the Egyptian Russian model can be a model for the other countries in Africa.
Yes. Dr. Abdullah, the agenda of the talks during the summit is also expected to address efforts to face evolving challenges and threats, in addition to ways to boost the regional stability. How can African-Russian ties impact these files in particular?
The African-Russian ties, as we said, will depend upon the stability of the African countries.
Yes.
Some countries in Africa have a very good standard of stability, and of course this will gain more from the Russian project and from the investment and from the cooperation between Russia and the African continent. And the economy of this country would gain much. Some African countries still have instability in the society, either political problems or social problems. And of course, these countries will not gain from any investment, either from Russia or from other countries, because no country will send their own people to work in a society which is unstable and unsafe.
Indeed.
These countries, of course, will continue to be in a low standard economy and in a bad situation, unless the country can prepare the society and stop the political crisis and find solution for their own problems. In this case, they can get from the Russian investment or from the other investment from other European countries.
Yes,
and we hope that the leaders of these countries can realize that the time is going on, and if they don't find solutions for the problems of their own society, things can be more, and they will not gain from this good chances of investment in Africa.
Indeed, Dr. Salah Abdallah, our political analyst, thank you very much for your precious input. And moving on to Somalia, where the foreign envoys are loading a reconciliation conference in Somalia region state. In a joint statement issued in Mogadishu, the foreign envoys from the UN, EU, and the African Union stressed the importance of an inclusive reconciliation process in the country. More details follow.
Somalia's international partners on Saturday welcomed the opening of the Reconciliation Conference in the central region of Galmudug. In a joint statement issued in Mogadishu, the foreign envoys from the UN, EU, and African Union stressed the importance of an inclusive reconciliation process as an essential step towards the holding of state elections in Galmudug. The envoys said they welcome the commitment demonstrated by all stakeholders to an inclusive reconciliation process and commend the efforts of the Prime Minister as well as the Galmudug state and community leaders to bring all the communities together for this event. The Galmudug Reconciliation Conference, which kicked off in the Dasa Marib town, is expected to discuss the formation of an inclusive government in the state. The conference event is a precursor to the region's parliamentary and presidential elections and the formation of a unified Galmudug. The envoys welcomed the agreement to join in the conference by delegates who traveled to Dasa Marib following the conclusion of their deliberation in Hobyo.
And in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ebola cases reportedly rose by 13, with the disease spreading in insecure and border areas.
The World Health Organization said Ebola transmission in the affected Democratic Republic of the Congo region is still substantial, with new hotspots emerging in areas with limited access and security problems posing more challenges for response teams. In its weekly snapshot of the outbreak, the WHO said the country reported 13 new infections, boosting the overall outbreak total to 3,069 cases. Since the WHO's last update on August 29, the DRC reported 57 new cases, with intensity of transmission still substantial. It said another worry is sustained transmission in areas that pose a risk of regional spread. Those include Mutwanga and Kaina health zones, which are on the shores of Lake Edward and are on the border with Uganda. Underscoring that threat was an Ebola case confirmed in a child last week who was exposed and got sick in Mutwanga health zone. Her illness was identified at an entry point as she and her mother tried to seek medical care in Uganda. The girl, whose illness marked Uganda's fourth imported case, died from her infection on August 30.
Well, our dear viewers, that would bring us to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Hope you have enjoyed it. Until we meet again, I'm Rabia signing off.